It was the first ever tank to be produced by the Russian Federation. It was going to raise the standards for the Russian MBTs. It was designed to replace the aging T-72 and counter the latest generation of Western MBTs. It was the T-90. Firstly, we need to take a step back and briefly look at two different tanks to get an idea of where the T-90 was originally coming from. Those two tanks were the T-72 and T-80. These were both Soviet-era tanks, being characteristic of Soviet tank doctrine and design. Low silhouette, powerful gun, not the best crew comfort, but overall a good offensive and defensive tank. By the 80s, the T-72B was the most prominent main battle tank in the Soviet infantry, yielding a fierce 125mm smoothbore gun and Contact 1 ERA. Later models that appeared in the early 2000s and 2010s, such as the T-72B3, are more modernised T-72s made to T-90 standards. In some instances, the T-72B3s have better protection than early T-90s. If you would like to hear more about the T-72, I have a video a few weeks back which covers the entire history on making the Soviet icon. Feel free to check this out at the end of this video. On to the T-80U, which was the second factor that helped inspire the later T-90, appearing in 1985 and fully kitted out with Contact 5 ERA as well as other modifications, including the first Soviet use of a gas turbine engine. Now, let's move on to the development of the T-90. In 1992, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that they could not afford to manufacture two MBTs in parallel service. Throughout the Cold War, the Soviets had two tanks in simultaneous production. Firstly, the most up-to-date variation or model, whilst the inferior predecessor that was easier to produce was kept in service, tandem to the modern, more expensive tank. However, due to these cuts, they still had to carry on production of the T-80U and T-72B to keep both the local economy and manufacturers from collapsing. Even though the Omsk plant made 5 T-80s and Nizhny Tagil made 15 T-72s, they still expected to fulfill the orders made. The T-72 was given a sophisticated fire control system, which was implemented into a new model designated as the T-72BU. After modifications received in 1990, this was referred to as the T-90 program, further modified by the Kutsev-Vendiktov Design Bureau. It was to be primarily produced at the Nizhny Tagil plant and with some other components made at Omsk. The final prototype, which was later turned into a production model and revealed in 1992, was a T-88, which was placed into production in 1993. Upgraded Contact 5 ERA was placed on turret cheeks and hull and aesthetically resembled a T-72. Despite this correlation, there were many differences. Many of the original components seen on the T-72 were modified or overhauled completely, and the base production variant of the T-90 came out in 1994 and could possibly have been viewed as an extremely modified T-72. As per usual, the export market was taken into consideration, and the T-90S was made for the market, with the usual downsides for export models. The T-90 also had 3-tiered protection system, where composite armour of the turret, Contact 5 ERA and Shtora 1 countermeasure systems, which detonated smoke grenades and other things, helped to drastically modernise and improve crew and tank survivability. This is probably one of the key defining qualities of the T-90 that separates it from the older T-72s and cements its place as a third-generation MBT. Although production ceased in 2015, being replaced by the T-14 Armata, there have been 2,260 T-90s made, with the lowest production number for any Soviet or Russian MBT. Each unit cost an average of $2.5 million. The first production variants of the T-90 were coupled to an almost identical engine to the T-72BU, which was the V12 V84 MS diesel, giving out 840 horsepower. It was connected to an APU, which also assisted in several subsystems internally on the T-90, which was beneficial as it could operate these systems without starting the main engine. The engine could thrust 46 tons of Russian MBT to 60 km on-road or 45 km off-road. The transmission was manually operated with 7 forward and 1 reverse gear. The power was given to the sprockets in a similar fashion to the T-72B and was assisted with 6 road wheels either side, spreading the weight and being suspended using torsion bars. Range of this MBT was around 550 kilometers, which was pretty decent compared to the fuel-thirsty gas turbines. For underwater travel, the T-90 could submerge up to 1.2 meters without preparation and 5 meters with. It could ford most shallow rivers without the need for bridges. A snorkel could be added, or OPVT. The T-90 could climb to a maximum of 30 degrees of terrain and could stay stable at that angle. It could cross a trench 2.8 meters wide and could climb obstacles 0.85 meters high. Alongside smoke discharges in the turret, there was a smoke generator which used the fumes of the engine to create smoke. Most T-90s used a T-72 hull, which is made of steel rolled homogeneous armour, at around 50 to 150 mm in strength. Next in protection for the turret was the cheeks, which were integrated with what was nicknamed as Dolly Parton. This was extremely successful in tests in the early 90s, however this couldn't sufficiently stop modern APFSDS, so Contact 5 ERA was added throughout the tank. Protection levels with ERA range from 800 to 830mm against APFSDS, and against HEAT-FS was around 1150 to 1350. The T-90 was given Shtora 1 electro-optical jammer, which jams the semi-automatic command to line sight, SACLOS or ATGMs, laser rangefinders and target designators. Shtora is most effective with hard-to-kill systems such as the Arena. Shtora is used by the T-80U/UK and T-84. They are the red eyes of the T-90. The T-90 had a 125mm 2A46M2 main gun, later modified to the 2A46M5. These were both smoothbore types of barrel. The latter was assisted by the 2E46-4 two-plane electromechanical stabilizer. 43 rounds of ammunition could be stored in the carousel below the turret, which was connected to the autoloader. The autoloader is efficiently the same model as seen on the T-72B and can select APFSDS, HEAT, HE-FRAG rounds very quickly and efficiently. The commander has the ability to pass the target coordinates to the gunner or ballistic computer whilst he is looking for the next target. The fry control system increases the chance of the T-90 to get the first shot off in an engagement, which doesn't guarantee, but gives a higher chance of being the victor of an engagement. The second heavy machine gun is mounted on the roof, and is remotely controlled, which is an added bonus. The T-90 was originally named the T-72BU, until it was changed to the T-90A. This first version was complemented with the arrival of the command version, the T-90K, equipped with the usual radio and other modifications to the command variant. The T-90E was the first export version in export style, with downgraded quantities, but no orders were placed. The first appearance of the T-90A was in 1999. It had a fully welded turret, derived from the Object 187 experimental MBT, breaking the long consistency of cast turret design. The T-90S was the first effective export version, which received a 1000 horsepower, 750 kilowatt engine, without Shtora 1 APS. There were also two different turret armor versions, and in Acrylic are shown as the T-90C. There was also a commanded version of the T-90S, the T-90SK. India also modified their T-90Ss to the T-90S Bhishma. The T-90A is the latest modification, which was introduced in the 2010s. It had a completely new turret with the new firing control system, Kalina, which was achieved using the new ballistic computer and integrated combat information and control systems, with additional digital displays to enhance the awareness in the battlefield. A new autoloader was present, as well as an upgraded 2A46M5 smoothbore gun. The T-90AM has a secondary gun which is dedicated in delivering rapid fire, completely remotely controlled, to counter low-flying helicopters and aircraft. This is of 20mm caliber. The turret also has an assortment of digital cameras for enhanced surveillance and vision, specifically for the use of urban combat. The T-90MS is an export version of the T-90AM, with an assortment of new ERA and other internal modifications. In 1995, the Russian Defense Ministry prioritized the T-90 over the T-80, in which the T-90 was preferred, as although it was inferior to the T-80 in mobility, the T-90 had cheaper running costs, less complex mechanism, and a more fuel-efficient diesel compared to the thirsty gas turbine of the T-80. The T-80BV also performed poorly in the First Chechen War in urban combat stages. In September of 1995, 107 T-90s have been produced and have been stationed at the Siberian and Far Eastern military districts. The 1999 version of the T-90A, Vladimir, with the fully welded turret, entered service. It saw combat in the 1999 Chechen invasion of Dagestan. According to Army reports, the T-90 survived 7 RPG hits. The success of the Arena and Shatora protection systems have been displayed in these conflicts. The T-95 program was also announced, however the Russians resorted into modifying the T-90 and putting the T-14 into production. Very few T-90AMs were built, and due to the cost of the T-14 being much too high for the export market, the T-90MS will probably fill the role of the next primary export Russian MBT for the near future. Thank you very much for watching this video on the T-90. I really hope you have enjoyed. As I mentioned earlier on, if you want to learn more about the T-72, the T-90's predecessor, then please go check out my T-72 video, link will be in the description. And as always, thank you very much for watching and stay safe in these difficult times. Goodbye.